All right, so it's time to talk about Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Going to talk about my predictions as to the sales figures and how well this is going to do and how well it's going to be received. Also, going to talk about the budget of this game, and there's a lot of rumors running around about the budget as far as that's concerned. But I've got my own numbers to kind of run by you to give a context of how well it needs to do to pull a profit. And I also have a review pulled up that I wanted to talk about as far as how this is going to be received, how this game will be received. So we're going to get into all that, but before we do, the gameplay today is Fumes. I've had this on my channel before. It's a fun little procedurally generated Mad Max style world, and you basically fight these other cars and defeat the bosses, and the procedural generation is really great. There's a bunch of different biomes you can drive to. And so this is like the alpine forest biome or pine forest biome. But there's like deserts and snowy areas and the whole 9 yards. Day-night cycle. Really neat little game to get into. Highly recommend you checking it out. It is a free demo. They haven't launched the game yet, but, like I said, free demo ain't bad. And there's a lot of content in this. It'll keep you entertained for quite some time. So, yeah, definitely check it out. Link will be in the description for that. And so let's go ahead and talk about Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Now, obviously this is not out yet. It's coming out on Halloween. And, so it's coming up pretty quick here. So I wanted to make my predictions before the release date so that I had it marked down. So we'll see if I'm right in the end. But I think that this is going to fall short. And obviously, I mean, that's not a surprise for anyone. Most people are thinking this game is going to fall short and not be received too terribly well. But I've got some numbers to run through to kind of secure my position on that as far as my guesses are concerned. But we're going to also talk about that review in a little while. So the numbers, I think, are going to be pretty horrific. Now, you know how I like to do the follower history and everything, so we're going to take a look at that. Right now, it's at 73,000 followers on Steam Hub. Now, obviously, this is just Steam, but you can basically triplicate these numbers to get an estimate of this and console, because it does change. Some games are more popular on PC than they are on console. Some games are more popular on console than PC. But if you take the Steam numbers and you triplicate them, that'll basically get you around the right neighborhood as far as how many sales and how many followers are actually out there across the board. So if you take 70,000, let's say it's 210,000, multiply that by 3. So you got 210, 220,000 eyes on this across the board. And that will basically translate to sales as well. But I'm going to do a little bit of a different comparison. I'm going to actually compare this to Baldur's Gate 3. Just because they're basically the similar, they're targeting the same audience. So let's take a look at Baldur's Gate. Now, Baldur's Gate did very well. It had 13.6 million estimated owners. That's splitting the difference there. But the followers on launch, they had 619,000. So that's almost 10 times as much as what had on Dragon Age. So let's call it, let's call it a little less than 10 times. Let's say 8 times. But I don't know. The math is a lot harder with 8, so let's say it's 10. So 13 million, so that's 1.3. Let's say we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and let's say we round it right up to 2. So 2 million sales on PC, 6 million sales across the board. So 6 million sales at $60 is, give it about $360 million. So let's say that the game makes $360 million. And that's very optimistic considering the early estimates on this are that Veilguard is not going to be a popular game, whereas Baldur's Gate was massively popular. So you can almost take that and knock it in half, I would say. But we're going to not do that. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this is going to be at least proportionally as popular as Baldur's Gate 3. So 360 million is our baseline. Now, this game has been in development for a long time, at least 10 years, I've heard 15. I think 15 is a fair estimate, considering it's been going through changes and prototyping and all that stuff for as at least that long. So let's just call it 15 years. And on the low side of my estimate, let's say 100 employees on average worked at this at any one point in time for $100,000 baseline salary every year. And that's including like health insurance and all that stuff. So it is a fairly low estimate, I would say, of 100,000. Total cost then is going to be about $150 million for development. If you take half of that for the marketing budget, that brings the total cost to $225 million. So you're talking, $130 million in profits, give or take, on the low end. And if you estimate on the high end for the cost of this, let's say 150 employees instead of 100, $120,000 salary instead of $100,000, and that same 15 years, that brings it to a total cost of $270 million. If you say that the marketing budget is the same as the development budget, which oftentimes it is, then that's a total cost of $540 million, which means now that $360 million in net revenue, now they're in the hole. So now they are losing almost $180 million on this game. So on the high estimate, and that's even a conservative estimate in my opinion, but let's say on the high estimate they're losing over $100 million. On the lower side, they're profiting over $100 million. So yeah, it's very on the edge that they'll even break even, in my opinion. So this is not going to be a successful game, regardless of how well it does proportionally. I mean, we're talking if it does as well proportionally as Baldur's Gate 3 here. So that's the best case scenario. I think they're going to do worse than that. So my prediction is they're going to lose money. I think that the high side of the development cost is probably accurate. So $500 million, and they're probably going to make less than that $360 million in income. So they're going to lose money on this. This is going to be a huge loss for them, I suspect. Now, I could be wrong, and if I am, more power to them. But let's go ahead and qualify the fact that I don't think that even this 70, it's over here, this 70,000 followers is going to translate into the same thing as Baldur's Gate 3 did. I think it's going to be probably considerably lower. So it's going to be interesting to find out, and we may never actually truly know. The best case scenario is we might get these numbers in a quarterly report, but a lot of times that's all combined across multiple lines of business, and so you might actually not get the full picture or the full idea of how well this game actually did, because they do play those numbers pretty close to the chest, unfortunately. And again, this is EA, Bioware. They don't like to advertise too much on that front. Like most AAA companies, they don't really tout their numbers as honestly as they should, I guess. But that said, why do I think that this is going to do worse proportionally than Baldur's Gate 3 is because of the review that I saw. And again, I'm trying to be as charitable as I can here. So we're not going to find someone who, ideologically identifies exactly how I do. I'm looking for the opposite side of the spectrum, and I went as opposite as I could find, which is this guy, Andy Bickerton. So this is from NPR, obviously not lining up with me politically, it's the context of this is very much also not ideologically lining up with me at all. So this is like the best case scenario in terms of someone reviewing this game, in my opinion, and It is mixed at best, and so we're going to get into that in a little bit here. We're just going to start with the intro here, and then skip around a little bit. But I'll put a link in the description for this and also archive it so that you can refer back to that. I'll put it on archive.is. YouTube doesn't like those links, but you can look it up on archive.is. Now, let's just go through this. In 2010, Canadian developer Bioware was in peak form. It released Mass Effect 2 to near unanimous acclaim, winning over 100 awards just 1 year after the successful launch of an old-school RPG role-playing series Dragon Age Origins, the company was the name in cinematic RPG experiences, with a near-pristine record like classic Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter's Nights, and Knights of the Old Republic. We don't talk about Sonic Chronicles, The Dark Brotherhood, but in the following years, BioWare's reputation began to falter. Dragon Age 2 was rushed and underbaked. Mass Effect 3 and Dragon Age Inquisition sold well, but felt a little off, from Dragon Age brightening up its dark fantasy setting to Mass Effect failing to deliver the meaningful choices players expected. Then came the critical disappointment of Mass Effect Andromeda, the commercial disaster of Anthem, leadership departures and layoffs. BioWare's heyday had all but ended. Now, he's saying after nearly a decade-long development cycle, BioWare is shooting for redemption with Dragon Age the Veilguard. After completing it in 60 hours, I'm happy to report that the game is packed with excellent combat, level design, progression systems, equipment optimization, and charismatic companions. It is, simply put, a well-executed action RPG. However, Veilguard's wildly inconsistent tone prevents it from standing tall in BioWare's illustrious catalog. If you're hoping for a return to the series' origins, you'll be disappointed, but if you're looking for an expertly streamlined blockbuster, Veilguard is a delight. Now, reading further into this article, I would say that this guy's gamers creds absolutely give him the right to an accurate representation, at least, of the combat level design, progression systems, and that kind of stuff. I would say he's reasonably credible in those respects, because, I mean, even further down in the article, I don't know much about this guy, but even further down in the article, he mentioned Elden Ring, beating that on difficult, I think he said, or did he say he beat this one on difficult? Either way, I mean, he's got consistent gamer creds. He put 60 hours into this game, so that is sufficient enough for me to say that this is a reasonably accurate review. Now, he does have some biases that we're going to get into, and I think that those biases are trying to pull this review more positive than it actually is. But that said, I think the actual mechanics of the game are probably solid, and that's a significant benefit to this game. I don't think people are going to get that far. I don't think people are going to be interested enough to even get into the game to find out if those mechanics are worth it or not. Unfortunately, this world is, in this world, when you see the trailers, and, those trailers have a lot to do with how you're going to enjoy that game. So things like the art style, things like, political agendas being injected into it, those turn gamers off, and we're seeing those everywhere in this game, and those hallmarks are all over the place. Not to mention, even further down, I'm going to read another thing about that very inconsistent tone, and that's probably the biggest deal breaker in this game, in my opinion. So we're going to just skip through. I mean, he's saying basically what I just said. The action gameplay is good, mastering combat and party composition, so on and so forth. And, completing Shadow of the Erdtree, I thought I'm better than this. So he had to respec. So, I mean, there is a fair amount of challenge, it seems, in this game, at least a reasonable amount of it. So that is a positive aspect. That said, further down here, this is the part I really wanted to read. Compared to its predecessors, Veilguard often feels ripped from a different franchise. Some scenes are distinctively Dragon Age, while others feel more like a Disney movie. It's an M for mature game with an excess of tonally conflicting E for everyone moments. On one hand, you have blood mages ritualistically sacrificing enslaved people, a horrifying blight decimating villages, and an ancient elven gods turning innocent people into monsters. On the other hand, you have a silly skeleton butler soundtracked by music that feels like Christmas morning at Hogwarts. So that is something that a lot of these games, especially in the AAA sector, are starting to really overdo. It's that, I don't even know how to properly put this, but it's a very, CalArts style mentality, very immature, mentally speaking, put into a very mature setting. So it's very childlike in its representation in a world of very mature themes. And that dissonance is really starting to grind on people. And I think it's always ground on me, but I think it's really starting to get to people now because it's just been amped up every year. Starting to boil that frog from years ago, and now it's getting to the point where people are starting to take notice. in a big way. And so having that as a huge component of this game, it's gonna be a problem. And I gotta say about the art style, sucks. I don't like this as a Dragon Age game. I don't think this is proper art style for a Dragon Age game. I think this is more appropriate for a different franchise. Like if you wanted to start off anew with a different franchise, this would be more appropriate. It looks immature, and it's a mature game, and that is a problem with this. And it's just not. It's not interesting, and it's not attractive, and it's not gripping me. It's not like they don't look cool. They look like dorks, and I don't want to play as dorks. I want to play as cool, awesome characters that have interesting stories and heroic, epic adventures. And these guys don't look like that. These guys look like they're gonna get wiped out by the actual party that comes through and is on the huge epic quest. Like these guys look like they're trying to stand in the way of it, and they get flattened by them. To be honest, so yeah, that's the problem I have with the art style. But that's kind of an aside. It is important, and it does reflect very poorly on the game when they have trailers with this kind of art style out there. It turns people off. So it is a major issue, but it's not the biggest issue I'm seeing here, which is more that tonal dissonance. That's a big problem. So going further into this, there are some other areas where I wanted to talk about. That's a little further down here. So we're just going to skip over this and read this last paragraph here. Relationships are the horse driving the cart rather than, say, the political and religious complexities of Inquisition. It feels more like Mass Effect than Dragon Age in that sense. That's not always a bad thing. Bioware has always been ahead of the curve in diverse representation, and Veilguard incorporates a storyline involving a character coming out as non-binary. You can have your character Rook identify as trans. So, yeah. Horny writing. So that's the first class citizen in this game. And again, it's something I have a problem with. It's actually one of the major reasons why I won't play Baldur's Gate 3, is because I don't want a dating simulator, especially a pornographic one, in my freaking adventure game. I just want an adventure game. Now, you can have romance in the game, that's fine, but making it such a huge component of the freaking game, making this like so much bigger than just learning about the characters and going on that adventure, going on that quest. I mean, that's what an RPG is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a dating simulator. It's supposed to be full character development, not just the romance, not just that part, actual full character development. And, through the course of the hero's journey. I mean, that's the idea of an RPG. That's been the formula forever, and this is counter to that. I think that trying to inject these romances in these dating simulator moments, it did come from Mass Effect, so it's not a surprise that BioWare would do this. But it's not proper for an RPG. I don't think. I don't even think it's proper for Mass Effect in the reality of the situation. I don't really want it in Mass Effect, and though I mean I know a lot of people do, but not me. So last thing I wanted to talk about with this is, even though this is BioWare and this did come from Mass Effect, I think the reason why they injected all this is because of Baldur's Gate. So it's kind of a full circle thing, because I think Baldur's Gate put it in because of Mass Effect. So Baldur's Gate adopted from Mass Effect, and then Dragon Age adopted from Baldur's Gate, which, completes the circle, as it were, and makes it all complete trash in my book. But again, that's just me, and I understand that is not a huge problem for a lot of gamers. So I don't think that this is going to have as big of an effect as that tonal dissonance, as the art style, as those kind of things in this game. But it does have an effect. So yet again, another negative, another nail in the coffin, as it were. Now that said, like I said, this guy has said that the gameplay itself, the mechanics, they're good. I do believe him on that front, but that's only a part of these kind of games. And, you know, at the end of the day, art style matters, story matters, you know, being politically as neutral as possible matters, especially in this day and age, because everybody is super sensitive to it. You know, not just the left-wingers are sensitive to it, the right-wingers are too. So if you inject left-wing politics in your game's going to have half the people interested in it that it could have. If you inject right-wing politics in your game, you're going to have half the people, at best, I would say, half the people interested that you would normally have. Now, I do think, in this day and age, more people are right-wing, quotation marks, heavy quotation marks there, than left-wing, but that's because we've shifted the Overton window so far left that former left-wingers are now considered right-wingers. So there's like the far left and then everybody else. And I think everybody else kind of is more in that middle to right category. So I think if you injected right-wing politics into your game, I think it would actually do better than if you injected left-wing politics in your game in this day and age. But that's just a theory on my part. I don't know how that would work out. Maybe I'll try it someday. I don't know. But I'm not a big enough game dev to even consider it right now. So, you know, 20 years down the line when the Overton window shifts back, I'll try it again and see what happens. But yeah, it'll be too late by then. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. But yeah, this is kind of an interesting review because I wanted to get somebody that was ideologically in opposition to me, you know, on the other side of that political spectrum from me. And this guy is definitely that. I do respect his opinion on the mechanics. And I think that the political and social commentary side of this has been kind of damped as much as possible from being a negative point. But he even, to his credit, said absolutely that these are problems for this game. So, you know, to his credit, I give him props for that too. So I guess we're not all that ideologically opposed, as even though we're completely opposite on the political spectrum. I can still respect his opinion on this. And given the fact that he works for NPR and he ain't giving this a glowing review, I think that tells us an awful lot about where Dragon Age the Veilguard is going to land. And I think that combined with this fairly low follow count of 73,000, you're going to see it do a lot worse than 540 million estimated cost of development, or even 225 million. So I think we're gonna see this lose money. And so there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like these kind of videos, subscribe to the channel. Also, definitely check out Fumes, and I will talk to you guys later.